When I was a teenager, I remember going to the AA meetings and the rehab meetings for my grandmother after she had a serious fall and hit her head real bad. She was in the intensive care and everything like that. And the court mandated that she go to rehab because obviously this was a product of drinking and slipping and falling. And so while she was there, where they had the family day and everything like that, and I was a teenager, and I remember going to those meetings, and I hated it. It was very uncomfortable, very weird, and I never thought years later I would be going to those, and my family would be going to them with me. But I remember going to these meetings, and I remember how weird it was thinking about the Serenity Prayer. Here they are, they talk about their life, they talk about their issues, and out of the blue, they all hold hands and talk about the Serenity Prayer and quote the Serenity Prayer. You know the one, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And my question today that we're going to be addressing in this video is, what's the nature of this prayer and can it help us stay sober? And that's coming up right now. Welcome back. I'm Marcus from TalkSober.com. If you're new here and you have not yet subscribed, make sure you click the little subscribe button and the bell icon so that you can stay in touch with me and stay sober with me and everything like that. And if you're coming back to us, welcome back. And today what I want to do is I want to talk to you about the Serenity Prayer. How does this help us stay sober, if anything at all? Well, you got to remember that the AA recovery culture of today's modern world started way back in the 1900s, the early 1900s, some of it as early as the 1800s. And back in that time, they equated recovery with Christianity and with Bible and with spiritual and stuff like that. And so they looked at a lot of different prayers. Now, the funny thing about the Serenity Prayer is it came from Reinhold Niebuhr, I think is how you say it. And he was back in like the 1870s to the 1950s and stuff like that. And this prayer is actually very old, but the roots of the prayer are actually older than that and have nothing to do with Christianity. The Serenity Prayer here, let's talk about that. Serenity Prayer. And I don't have a spell checker on the blackboard, so I apologize for my spelling. So the Serenity Prayer here, we have to look at where it really roots from. And it roots from ancient Greece with Stoicism. Stoics. Again, no spell checker, so I apologize. But it starts with the Stoics. Now, the Stoics were very big on a certain thing. They were big on a topic of taking a look at your life, right? You take a look at your life and you look at everything as a whole. Now, oftentimes in modern culture, everything gets fragmented, right? We got ourselves in our job, and we got ourselves arguing, and we got that thing on Facebook post that we saw that pissed us off, and we have this thing, and we have our addiction, and we have all these things going on in our brain. Now, the Stoics recognized that this was happening as well, and these Stoics were smart guys. They came up with a lot of good stuff that has actually helped me today and helped millions, if not billions of people. I don't know how many read it, but we'll say lots of people. All right, so the Stoics there, they broke things up. They said, look, life is complicated. There's a lot of things going on. There's arguments, there's business, there's life, there's feelings, there's emotions, there's religion, there's spirituality, and there's all this stuff going on. So how do we make sense of it? Well, what they did is they said, well, let's separate things into things that I can't change, right? Because we got to face it, as addicts and alcoholics and things like that, we have to look at it and say, well, what are the things that we can't change? Because when I was active in my addiction, I was a little bit more narcissistic than I am now. I try to contain it, right? But back then, I thought that I could control everything. I sat there and I said, I can control money, I can make people think the way I want, I could make people see my point of view, I could shove my ideas down people's throat, and that was the way that I looked at things. And I said, man, these are the things that I can change. I can change everything, right? I can change, let's spell this right, can change everything. I thought I could change everything, and I was a control freak. And it was funny because the first person who called me a control freak was my addiction counselor that I had at the time through an online addiction thing. And I was trying to get sober, and she's like, you know what your problem is you are a control freak. And I thought to myself, I'm not a control freak. I'm not one of those people. But I actually looked at it deeper, and I realized that I was trying to control every aspect of my reality. So what the Stoics had here is they said, well, what are the things that we cannot change? I can't change other people, right? The best I could do is ask for their cooperation. I can't change other people. I can't change the weather. I can't change my health. I can't change a lot of these things. And what we do is we start to realize that there's a lot in life that we cannot change. Okay, there's some things I can change. Like I can change my business. I can change my direction. I can change the way I look at things. I can change, most important, my perspective. And perspective is the number one thing that keeps me sober today and got me sober back then. And that is because what it does is it changes the way I look at things. Now, instead of having to get inside every argument, having to deal with everything as it comes, I could step back and I could say, hey, you know what? What are the things I can't change? What are the things I can change? And can I have the wisdom to know the difference? See, this is the key in this prayer. The key is the wisdom to know the difference. Because back when I was drinking, I thought that I had to change everything. I thought I was in control of everything. And a lot of Western thought, a lot of our current culture believes that we need to go out there and we need to deliberately change every single thing. We are the masters of our destiny. We are the creators of our world. We manifest our thoughts and all this kind of mumbo jumbo that really doesn't work, right? The current thought process of Western culture is the idea that we control everything. And what it's going to do is it's going to control everything until you're digging yourself out of a ditch, because you have to realize what you can and cannot control. Now, what about this word serenity, right? Serenity. God, grant me the serenity. Now, you've heard this over and over. You probably heard it on Seinfeld where he yells, serenity now, in an effort to chill himself out. And you've probably heard it lots of other places where they say, yeah, I need to be serene. I need to be chilled out. I need to be calm and collective. Now, what does this mean? Does this mean we just need to be calm and collective for right now and we need to chill out for right now? Or is it a life process? And I believe it's actually a life process, because the funny thing about this prayer is the fact that serenity comes by recognizing what you can't change and what you can change, and knowing the difference and saying, what can I do, what can I do? So what I want you to do right now is I want you to examine your life, because there's things in your life that'll make you drink, right? I know what it was like. I used to have to drink. I'd say, today I'm not going to drink. Then someone would argue with me. Someone would cut me off in traffic and make me pissed off and whatever. And I was living my life as if life happened to me, as if I was the only person in the world and these things happened to me. I can't believe this happened to me. I can't believe this person did that to me, as if everyone was revolving around me. Right? I did say I was a little bit more narcissistic back then, probably a lot more. But we have to look at this and we have to say, is life really happening to you, or is it happening to everyone? Are these things that are coming at you things that you can rise above, things that you can look at and take in stride and say, you know what? The guy on the freeway would have been pissed off if I was there or not. He's just pissed off. That's just his bag, right? That's his thing. I can't change that. What's the point of getting argumentative, and what's the point of stewing about it, right? It's like the old story, the Zen story, where they say there's these two Zen monks and they're walking along and they come to a river, and there's a lady at the river and she's afraid to cross. She can't cross for whatever reason. And it was a rule of the monks never to touch a woman back there. Don't touch them, don't shake their hand, don't even let their hair wisp by you or something like that, right? Really crazy stuff. But they were there and the monks saw them, and one of them said, well, you know what? You need to get across the river. Whoop, picks her up, carries her across the river, sets her down, says, there you go. The lady says, thank you. And the two monks go walking off. About an hour later, the monks were walking, and the other one, the one that didn't carry the lady across, turns to him and he says, you know, I just got to get this off my chest. It's driving me nuts. But do you realize how many monk rules you broke by carrying that lady and touching that woman and carrying her across the river? And he said, I do realize, but the lady needed help. And the funny thing about it is I left the lady on the other side of the river. You've been carrying her the entire time we've been walking. Now we have to look at this. What are the things in life that we can't change that we carry with us? What are these stories that we carry with us? What are these irritations? What are these things that cause us to not be serene and not be calm? And why are we carrying them with us? Why do we continue to keep these things going on? Why do we continuously torture ourselves with things that we can't change or things that we can change? And we're torturing ourselves over and over instead of doing something about it, right? If we can't change it, I can't do anything about it, right? If I get sick, if it's something I can't control, I can't do anything about that. I can't do anything about your response, right? There's people on YouTube and they respond terribly. Actually, I have a channel where I teach marketing and I thought that would be the one with the mean comments. But surprisingly, it's the addiction one. And people put mean comments all the time and tell me terrible things. And, I could look at it and I can carry it. And sometimes I do. Sometimes I'm like, man, maybe that guy's right. Or I could say, you know what? Let's look at the 1,000 people who are being affected. Let's look at the 1,000 people who are being changed, right? I can't control the thoughts, actions, beliefs, motives, desires, words, outcomes of other people. I can't do that. All I can do is control what I do. All I can do is control my response. And when you realize this, you say to yourself, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I can't change. I can't accept some people in my family and their opinions, but I can't deal with it. I can't change it, but I can accept them as a human with their own beliefs, their own ideas. I don't have to agree with it, but I sure as hell can't change it. And you see all these things, right? You see people, and I used to do this too. I'd go on Facebook and I'd argue about politics with people, and I'd argue about this and that with people, and it's gotten even worse today. Luckily, when I was drinking, it wasn't as bad. But I used to argue with these people, and as if an argument was ever solved on Facebook or Twitter or whatever, right? As if people even wanted to hear my opinion. And these are the things I can't change. So why even bother? Why get all frustrated? Why risk going out and drinking again over some guy's opinion that you haven't even met online? Or why deal with something you can't change, like someone gets a promotion at work instead of you? You can't really change that. You can't, right? People stew about this stuff for years instead of being better, right? What can you change? You could do your job better and you could get promoted next time, right? That's something you can change. That's something you can do. But you can't change the past. You can't change the past. You can't change what you did in the past. You can't change who you were in the past. But I'll tell you right now, you're a different person right now. I'm a different person right now than I was back then. I can't change what happened back then. But knowing that I can't change it makes all the difference, because it changes the way that I think. It changes my perspective, and it says I'm going to be okay right now. So let's look at this and let's see how this can help us stay sober. And if you like this stuff, I would encourage you to dive into Stoic philosophy. It's something I've gone through on my channel here. It's something I've gone through before, and it talks about the differences between what we can and cannot do, and it talks about relaxing and chilling out, right? You look at the Stoics, those dudes were chill, right? They were calm, and they said, well, these things happen. And they were in the midst of an oppressive government. And I don't talk about like oppressive like we have now. This is nothing. That was like fully oppressive, controlled by a dictator guy, right? It was bad news. And so they looked at it and they said, how can we change? Or how can we realize what we can't change, what we can change? And how can we live a life that gets results? Because here's the deal. Right now, you could be looking at it and saying, well, I stew about things. I get mad about things I can't change. I get irritated by things I can't change. And you could say to yourself, well, that's where we're at. That's what we're going to do. And I got to ask you, how is that working for you? If you're still drinking over every little bump in the road, if you're still like that monk carrying the thoughts of what happened 2 hours ago or years ago or whatever, How is that working for you? Is your life working, or are you drunk? Do you have to drink to make it through life? If you do, it's time to change your perspective. And change your perspective of things that you cannot change, things you can change, and get the wisdom to know the difference. Start to understand it and start to pause and look at everything and say, you know what? This thing irritated me and I want to go drink. And you say, you know what? I'm going to wait 15 minutes and I'm going to start to think about what I can and cannot change about this situation. And I guarantee things will start to feel a lot better for you the more you do this and the more you train yourself. I'd like to thank you for watching this video. I hope it helps you understand how and why the Serenity Prayer is used, how it can help us. Again, it's not like the be-all end-all, but it is something that helps, and it'll help you calm down, and you say it to yourself, and maybe you'll get some results, and maybe it'll start to help you realize what really matters, what's really important, and that is your sobriety and your sanity, which are hand in hand, because if you break your sobriety, you're probably going to break your sanity too. And that's the reason that I don't drink today, because I say to myself, hey, I could probably handle a beer. It's been 3 years. I mean, come on, one little Bud Light or one little beer, it's not going to hurt. But then something goes off in my head and I said, you know what? That's something I can't change. I can't change the fact that one little beer might tweak my brain enough to send me on a spiral. It's not about the one beer. It's about the starting of the mental insanity, because I can't control, right? If you drink, you can't change or control what happens to your mind and your body. It just happens, right? There's a point where you can control a little bit. That's right now, don't start. But that comes to a point where it affects the way you think. That's why I'm an alcoholic, because alcohol affected the way that I think. That's something I can't change. That's something I don't want to mess with. That's something I can't do. But what can I change? I can change not having the first drink. This is something that you can change, something you do have power over, is saying, no, I'm not going to take the first one. Now, if you take the first one, I don't know what's going to happen. You might be fine, you might not be fine. Is it worth it? And what has your track record shown? Have you been fine before? Chances are no. Otherwise, you wouldn't be watching this video. So I want you to realize things you can change, things you can't change. And I want you to start to remember that the serenity comes in knowing this stuff, because that's what we want as addicts. We want to feel good. We don't want to be locked in this trap. We don't want to be dealing with all this stuff going crazy over our lives. We want to start to be serene and say, I'm okay. I'm okay. It's going to be okay. And we want to start to look at that. And we want to start to change our lives, and we want to start to notice this, because as the prayer says, God, grant me the serenity. And if you're an atheist, that's cool. I actually lost my religion when I became a recovery. When I got sober, I lost my religion. I used to be a street preacher. Interesting stories. Subscribe to my channel if you want to hear them. But I lost my religion. So you could say, you don't even have to say God. You could say, grant me the serenity. Whatever's out there, grant me the serenity to accept the things I can't change. What can't I change? I can't change the fact that when I drink, these things happen, but I can change my response. I can't change other people. I can change my response to them, right? Change your response. Stop trying to change the things you can't, and your life will start to be a lot better. Thanks again for watching. I'm Marcus from TalkSober.com. Go over to TalkSober.com after you've subscribed to this channel and click the bell. Check out some tools we have for you on how to get and stay sober. 1 day at a time, 2 days at a time, whatever, how to get sober. That's the point. We don't want to drink anymore, and we want a life that works for us. And if you like that, check out the next video coming up soon, right here in the box. Somewhere on this, there's a video somewhere, click it. Thanks again for watching. I'm Marcus, and I'll see you in the next video.